Imagine waking up, checking your bank account, and discovering you can't access a single dollar. That's exactly what happened to John. His balance was still there, but every payment failed. Something was terribly wrong. Within minutes, every debit card transaction was declined. John had no idea why. Then his phone rang. The bank had an important message waiting for him. The bank representative calmly explained, an IRS levy notice had been received. John had heard about the IRS before, but he never imagined it could affect his bank account. Was all of his money gone? Or was there still a way to fix this? The answer begins weeks earlier, long before his account was ever affected. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the very beginning. This is the step-by-step story of how an IRS tax problem can eventually lead to a bank account levy under U.S. law. 6 months earlier, John was running a small business. Work slowed down, bills piled up, and his tax problems quietly began. Like many people under financial pressure, he decided to delay dealing with his tax paperwork, hoping things would improve. Weeks passed, and then the first official IRS notice arrived in his mailbox. The notice explained that taxes were still owed and asked him to respond before further collection actions could begin. Instead of responding immediately, John placed the letter in a drawer and returned to work. A few weeks later, another notice arrived. This time, the language was more urgent. Ignoring official tax notices doesn't make them disappear. The collection process can continue if no action is taken. John believed he still had plenty of time. He didn't realize the process was already moving forward. Every official notice contained information about the next steps and available options, but John never fully read them. Soon, the situation became much more serious. The next letter would change everything. A few weeks later, John received another official IRS letter. This one was different. It warned that if he didn't respond, the government could begin collection actions allowed by law. Inside was a final notice explaining that the IRS could move forward with a tax levy if the issue remained unresolved. The notice also explained that taxpayers generally have options to respond or resolve the issue before further collection actions continue. But overwhelmed by financial stress, John convinced himself he would deal with it later. Days turned into weeks. Without realizing it, the legal collection process continued in the background. Then one morning, the IRS sent a levy notice to John's bank. Once the bank received the notice, it had legal responsibilities to follow the process. John had no idea any of this was happening while he continued with his normal routine. Everything appeared completely normal until the next morning. The moment he unlocked his phone, his life changed in seconds. At 7:12 that morning, John unlocked his banking app and immediately noticed something was terribly wrong. His account balance was still visible, but every transfer and payment option had suddenly stopped working. Thinking it was a technical problem, John restarted the app, but the result was exactly the same. Minutes later, he called his bank to find out what had happened. The bank representative explained that an IRS levy notice had been received, and the bank was required to follow the legal process. John couldn't believe what he was hearing. Just a few weeks earlier, life had felt completely normal. Questions raced through his mind. Had he lost everything, or was there still a legal way to resolve the situation? The bank employee encouraged him to contact the IRS directly to understand what options might still be available. For the first time, John realized that ignoring those earlier notices had made the situation much more serious. But John's story wasn't over yet. The next step would determine whether he could recover access to his finances. The very next morning, John decided he couldn't ignore the situation any longer. He gathered every tax document he could find and prepared to call the IRS. Instead of guessing what would happen next, John wanted accurate information directly from the source. After waiting on the line, an IRS representative answered and began reviewing his account information. The representative explained that the levy didn't happen overnight. Multiple notices had been sent before collection actions moved forward. John asked the question that mattered most. Is there any way to resolve this now? The representative explained that, depending on the situation, taxpayers may have options such as payment plans or other resolution programs. For the first time in days, John felt a small sense of hope. There might still be a path forward, but resolving the problem would require paperwork, patience, and following every required step. Over the following days, John gathered every document needed to support his case. Now the process entered its most important stage, finding a solution that could help him regain control of his finances. After reviewing John's case, the IRS representative explained that his situation wasn't hopeless. There were still legal options that might help resolve the debt. The representative explained that many taxpayers qualify for payment arrangements, depending on their financial circumstances and eligibility. For the first time in weeks, John realized there was a clear path forward, but it would require patience and responsibility. Over the next several days, he completed every required document and submitted the requested financial information. Then came the hardest part, waiting for a decision. A few days later, an official response finally arrived. He opened the letter slowly, hoping for good news. His payment arrangement had been approved, allowing the resolution process to move forward. Over time, John followed the agreement and gradually rebuilt control over his financial situation. John's experience became a powerful reminder that acting early and responding to official notices can make a significant difference. But the biggest lessons were still ahead. John's experience taught him one important lesson. Most people don't lose access to their money overnight. The process usually begins much earlier. One common myth is that the IRS freezes bank accounts without warning. In reality, the law generally requires several notices before collection actions move forward. Another myth is that there's nothing you can do. Depending on the circumstances, many taxpayers may have options available. The key is responding early instead of waiting until the problem becomes much harder to solve. Ignoring official letters doesn't make them disappear. Acting early often creates more opportunities to resolve the situation. Looking back, John realized the warning signs had been there all along. He simply hadn't paid enough attention. Now he shares his experience so others understand how important it is to respond before problems grow larger. Financial mistakes can happen to anyone, but learning from them is what truly matters. Today, John's financial life looks completely different because he chose to take action instead of giving up. And that's the biggest lesson of this story. Understanding the process and responding early can make a major difference. Before we end, let's review the biggest lessons John's experience teaches about handling tax problems responsibly. First, always read every official notice carefully. Missing important deadlines can make the situation more difficult. Second, keep copies of your tax records and financial documents in one organized place. Third, if you're unsure about your situation, seek accurate information or qualified professional advice instead of ignoring the problem. Taking action early often provides more options than waiting until the last minute. Months later, John's life looked completely different. His finances were organized, and he felt confident about the future. The experience taught him that understanding the process is always better than reacting in panic. Every financial decision matters, and staying informed can help you avoid unnecessary stress. Knowledge doesn't erase every challenge, but it helps you make smarter decisions when challenges appear. If you found this documentary helpful, subscribe for more easy-to-understand explanations about U.S. law, taxes, and personal finance. Thanks for watching.